As of late, I've been purchasing more vintage watches than new watches, watches that are readily available. And what I've learned from all these vintage purchases is that my next watch will be a watch with a bezel. Let's start with this Seiko 66028050, a watch that doesn't have a bezel. Now, it has a full bezel because it's machined out. And what I mean is that the machining separates the lugs from where the bezel would be. So it looks like it has one, but in reality it's not. But what if it did? Now, unfortunately, the bezel that I have that looks its best is this gold one. So you have to humor me. But I want to prove my point. Without, with. It streamlines the watch. Aesthetically, it looks more premium. Not bad. Let's take a look at this vintage Elgin. You might be familiar if you've seen videos that I've done so far. It's a good looking watch. It's a pretty watch, and I love this watch, even though it doesn't have a bezel. But what if it did? What if this watch came with a bezel? It might look like this. Side profile looks legit. And the top view, not bad, y'all. Again, without, with. You see what I'm saying, y'all? Let's take a look at this Seagull from the early 80s. Good looking watch. Even has a signed crown, but no bezel. What if it did? Now again, I'm using a gold bezel, but I want to prove another point here. Both these watches, came from the communist era. And what I mean by watches, I mean the bezel. This bezel's from a Vostok. And I think they work. It's funny how, these cultures sharing the way they build their society, the way they run their society, it's going to come through in their products. I think it works. But maybe you disagree. And yeah, okay, it's cool. Let's see what it would look like if it came with a stainless steel bezel. Now, unfortunately, this one fits a little too tight, so it's barely hanging on, but I think I'm still making my point here. Makes the watch look more premium. Better thought out. Not that in its original form it looks like crap. I ain't trying to say that, man. I'm just trying to say that my next watches will be watches that feature bezels. This Orient has a full bezel. It's machined out. It's still part of the case. But it makes a big difference. Looks a little bit better. When I bought this vintage Elgin, Wittenauer. I already talked about the Elgin. When I bought this Wittenauer, I bought it because it reminded me so much of a vintage Air King, a watch that features a bezel. This one clearly doesn't have one. But what if it did? It would probably look something like this. Not bad, y'all. I mean, I'm really digging this stuff here. What is once an awkward bubbled acrylic plastic protrusion out of a case, once with a bezel, is a better look. It makes the watch look more premium. This is a watch with an actual bezel. Now this watch is so cool that if it didn't have the bezel, it would probably still look really cool. But would it look as elegant? I don't think so. On this watch. Watches can be so fun. What if the khaki Pilot Pioneer came with a bezel? This watch doesn't need a bezel. This watch is ultra cool. This watch is supposed to look like the original one, right? But humor me. Not bad. Most of y'all, or I shouldn't say most of y'all, some of y'all might be tripping like, oh man, that bezel doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's a polished bezel on a mostly stainless steel brushed case. But come on. Doesn't that profile look better? And until the next Dapper Wrist video, y'all know what time it is. Talk about a bezel, y'all.